Hey, Rambling Biss, back at it again, ready to give my impressions of Guilty Gear Stride! Based off its closed beta. I should really add that part that it is only really based off the closed beta, and I should probably get a few other things out there too, before I really get more into my opinion on the game. One, I've never really played a real Guilty Gear game before. Yeah, I played a bit of Guilty Gear 2, and that matters to the great speed of the lore, but that's not really a fighting game. And even then, I didn't play a lot of Guilty Gear 2, so I really do not know much of anything about Guilty Gear, other than Soul Bad Guy is the Ultimate Queen fanboy. I think I got like Guilty Gear Xrd Revolter sitting somewhere in my backlog, but I haven't got around to it. I'll get around to it eventually, Two, I have this weird thing with fighting games. For some reason, they have this weird time clicking with me. I mean, yeah, there's a fighting game series I like. I'm a fan of Soul Calibur. Super Smash Brothers is another favorite of mine. I mean, heck, I labeled it one of my top favorite games of last year. But the thing is, I am such a scrub, I cannot understand the intricacies. Intricacies, is that how you say it? Of fighting games. So, not an expert. I don't know terminology, what to do. I barely know what a footsie is what I should say. A tryhard that, that tryhard know-it-all that probably seems to know what he's talking about, but really doesn't seem like he does. Yeah, he probably knows more than me. That's just what it is. So, I'm basically the target demographic that Arc Systems is shooting for this game. So, who knows? Maybe this may be the one that kind of helped me figure out, oh, this is how you fight in game. Now, let's start off with my time with the demo to kind of give an idea of where my headspace was, because again, I don't know about the intricacies. Day one, I ended up missing the first day on account of the fact I'm a dum-dum, and I mixed up times because I don't know what time zones are sometimes, and I just think I would not be available at the time to play the first demo. The thing is, though, is that I still booted up the game because for one reason or another, I thought you can fight CPU battles for some reason. And I figured oh, hey, that might be a good way to practice. So I can get the game better. So, I checked it out to see if it worked. And it was true. And it worked, worked just fine. I messed with it for about a minute or two. And, thinking I'll get into some practice in tomorrow. Bear in mind, I was unaware of the server issues at the time. And I wasn't aware that the CPU fights were a temporary thing. The next day, I realized my mistake, and while it sucked, I couldn't practice against CPUs like I thought. It wasn't totally discouraging. I was thinking I'll lose a bunch of matches in the beginning, but in the back of my head, I was telling myself that if you lose 20 matches in a row, just stop bothering, dude. And, day two kind of went a bit better, Just finally started the game proper. I started off by picking Soul because, he's the Ryu of the series, so I figured, maybe I'll be able to figure him out enough to not be completely destroyed. Now, the thing is that my first online match went pretty bad. And it wasn't because I was completely destroyed by the other player. No, that would have been better. It was because the bastard, the moment that the intros were done playing, disconnected, and I found myself frozen in place, unable to move, for a little too long. It left me a bit salty after that, but the tried and true strategy of turning off and on worked wonders, and the game worked normal again. I guess the positive to this was that this was probably the worst thing that happened to me with the online, because it ran relatively smoothly after that. I mean, yeah, the odd stutter or two, but something that's not completely unbearable. Now, I made a genuine effort to try and play this like a proper fighting game, and I will admit that I play a little too aggressively, stupidly aggressively, and that's something that does not seem to gel well in fighting games like this. And really, this wasn't the game's fault, it's my fault. But, it gave me a good idea of okay, this is, maybe do this instead of that, or, maybe try to block a bit more. This was a good exercise in me trying to figure out of what I was doing wrong in fighting games, maybe because I need to play a few more of them to probably get a better idea of what I was doing wrong. So, now let's talk for Soul for a bit, because I have to talk about something, right? I felt he was fun to play. Nothing about him felt hard to grasp. I actually even managed to win a match or two with him with little issue. I played with him for most of my first session, but the thing is that he did not feel like a main to me. And I don't know why that was the case. Maybe something about his flow to combat just didn't seem to sit with me, but I have a hard time deciphering that. So, after that I decided to check out, the Ken to his Ryu, Kai. Now, Kai felt like someone up my alley, and I found myself clicking with him a whole lot more than Soul. He was the main guy I used for pretty much the rest of my time with this demo. The only real shame is that there were a lot of mirror matches later on, but hey, I found a main, right? So that's a positive this beta brought me. Going back to my first session, the most surprising thing I encountered was how many players I came across use Chip. It felt like most people either picked him or Kai, and I didn't really encounter the flux of Kai players until like my last session on Sanjay, but I found Chip to be an odd choice, but I could probably pin that, feeling on the fact is like I don't know jack shit about Guilty Gear, and maybe he's just like that one character that everyone seems to like playing as, but hey man, this game as a whole tickled my pickle enough to leave me satisfied with the time I spend on it. Now, I could talk about how I dearly wish more devs would copying the animation techniques that ARCs have been using for their 3D fighting games, and no, it's time to talk about the worst thing about this beta, and sadly, it's just not the poorly thought out UI. When I was writing my notes for this beta, because I don't know how to combo right, I found myself talking about one element a lot more than I thought I would. And it was the horrible, horrible lobby system. Holy shit. Most of the time, I found myself standing around like an asshole with a dick in my hand trying to figure out just how to start a match. It's ungodly stupid how something simple like looking for an opponent to fight was botched so hard, and it really, really annoyed me. I mean, yeah, I've experienced, like an ARC's crappy lobby system before. I mean, I've played fighters, but it's not a good feeling to walk around like a dingus hoping you bump into someone available. Like, it should just be a simple option of, hey, do you want to fight someone now or not? And that you just say yes, and you'll be able to fight anyone or anyone to your settings or whatever. But, whatever. I'm not going to rant on about that because, really, well, at least the netcode will be better, right? Whatever. But hey, though, otherwise, I had fun. I give a 7 out of 10 for gameplay, and the poo-poo lobby gets a 3 because I don't like it. Not one bit. Alright, so one more thing before I leave. I played one match as Axel, won that fight, and then told myself that he's too technical for my poo-poo brain. Yeah.